hard to hold a conversation in the Northland Neon shop on Woodland Avenue in Duluth. The hum and hiss of high voltage, vacuums and pumps keeps a dull roar going on all through the workday. You need to be part chemist, part electrician, and part artist to work on neon signs.
Yeah, it does sum it up, yeah.
Northland Neon traces its roots back to 1929. A few years ago, East grad Dave Johnson and Denfield grad Dan Nelson purchased the business. They didn't know much about neon at first, but after 4 years, they've got the process down.
Taking it all the way through from straight tube of glass to bending it up, putting ends on it, pumping it full of neon and lighting it up.
Fixing a vintage sign or creating new artwork for a client takes a careful balance of voltage, amperage, chemical composition of the gas, and even the gas's pressure.
But every once in a while, when the pressure's wrong, that will end up sparking about a ball about that big.
Dan Nelson doesn't mind fixing vintage neon signs, but his favorite work is breathing life into a client's custom dream project.
And just being able to take a stick of glass and turn it into something that they had imagined is just a great feeling.
Dave Johnson feels neon signs give everyone a great feeling.
It just sort of hangs in the air. There's a dimensionality to it where there's letters hanging in space. There's something strange about it.
In Duluth, Dave Anderson, Northern News Now.
Northland Neon is located on the corner of Woodland Avenue and Calvary Road in Duluth. We will be right back.